Well, welcome. My name is Doug Austin. I'm the founder and chairman of StrategicSource. We're a spend management company that helps dealers and an affiliate member of the CADA. We help dealers reduce costs and improve profitability through spend management tactics. Today, we're going to talk about why your suppliers love your purchasing strategies. Now, it's a little bit tongue in cheek, but where we're going to focus here is on how to fix it so that you have the control and the results that you're looking for. As we've learned across 2024, and I'm sure it's going to be true in 2025, dealers are challenged on profitability, margins are low, and there's a number of reasons for that. But we're going to help you understand how to get control of your expenses and improve that profitability. So some of the challenge or the learning topics today is really the challenges, why suppliers love your purchasing strategies. We'll talk about how to fix those issues with spend management best practices. And then lastly, some support from Strategic Source, and we'll take it from there. So how much money are you leaving on the table? Well, most dealers, and we've been in this space now with dealers 25 years this month. And I can tell you that there's research out there with a group called the Aberdeen Group that says that if you have a decentralized purchasing department, which 95% of the dealers do, you are overspending by 25% each month. Now, we have data that backs that up, that we have generated cost savings for dealers. The lowest we've ever had is 21%. The highest we've had is 31. So it falls right in there. So suffice it to say that you're leaving money on the table that could be dropping to the bottom line as profits. So there are hidden profit leaks in dealerships. One, you're overspending by 25%. Two, a lot of dealers just don't negotiate discounts with suppliers, and that's early payment terms, the ability to pay invoices with credit cards. Three, there's just too many suppliers. There's a lot of increased inefficiencies that go on because of that. Number four, overpayments to suppliers. We're paying the suppliers too much, and we find that out in the auditing process. And then number five, there's too many employees with purchasing authority. If everybody's in charge of purchasing, if everybody can negotiate with suppliers and bring new suppliers on, then really nobody's in charge. So we want to talk about that a little bit. Dealer frustration and fear that we've seen. Well, there's certainly constant price increases going on. We've seen that really over the last 3 years. Number two, no time to overhaul the spend management function. Dealers are running thinly staffed, and it's tough to get in and change processes and controls. Number three, dealers are afraid that that change is going to disrupt the operation. Four, there's stress, kind of this powerless feeling that, can they really fix the problem? And five, if they are willing and if they do have enough time, they're really unsure what to do and where to start. So let's try to address that today. Dealers pay 25% too much, and one of the reasons is that they shortcut the sourcing process. The sourcing process should really be made up of these 8 steps: define requirements, source, quote, negotiate, select and develop a solution, recommend and notify your suppliers, implement, and then manage and audit. Dealers tend to shortcut this process and go right to negotiation. Now, that's great if you have the data behind you, but normally the data that tells you what price to end up at comes from the quote process alone. So dealers tend to jump into step number 4 and negotiate, and they negotiate because they think they're great negotiators, but they're doing it with poor data. And that's typically the biggest reason for overspending by 25%. Number two, there's just too many buyers. We know that there's about 100 expense categories that a dealer will spend money in on a repetitive basis, from office supplies to credit card to DMS to insurance, so on and so forth. Yet most dealers have 1,000 suppliers. And if you translate that into invoices, well, that's 12,000 invoices a year. So net, there's too many buyers, too many suppliers. We're losing purchasing leverage, paying too many invoices. There's fewer discounts negotiated, which leads to higher prices and lost profits. So let's talk about 2025. We want to go from, in terms of objectives, paying 25% too much to reducing costs by that amount. We want to go from missed supplier discounts to new discounts, more cash. We want to go from too many suppliers to more leverage, get that supplier base right sized. Lack of controls, high risk to improve controls and less risk. And then ultimately, poor profits to increase profitability. That should be the objectives. Dealership facts that you should know, and this is true, we did 75 new clients last year. We look at all the data on the front end of those engagements. There's about 143 expense categories out there. You'll spend money in about 100. We know that dealers tend to spend about 5% of sales. So a $100 million dealership will spend $5 million on those 130 categories. We know that dealership supplier ratios can be 4-to-1, meaning 400 suppliers, all the way up to 200-to-1. We've seen large groups. So that just tells me it's vastly inefficient and there's lack of controls. We know the cost reduction opportunity is 25%, and we know that 95% of dealers do not have a purchasing department. They give the locations the freedom to select their own suppliers, and that causes the trouble. We also know that there's 72 categories that any business, whether you're a dealer, a church, a school, a manufacturer, you're going to spend money in these 72 categories all the time, from advertising to telecom to uniforms to postage and whatnot. If you look now, if you're a dealership, you're going to have a facility, so you can add in another 16 categories. Now we're up to what, 88. And of course, if you're an auto dealer, you're going to have another 56 categories of just automotive specific supplies and services. So my point is that you have a broad scope of expenses to manage. And the sooner you get those under control, the more, overspending we can negate and the greater the profitability we can achieve. So why do suppliers love your purchasing strategies? Well, there's a lot of things that they like about them. They like the fact that everybody can buy things, that you're not going out for quote. We'll get into that in some detail, but not only, why do they love your strategies, but let's talk more importantly about how to fix it so it's not advantageous for suppliers. The 10 reasons, and I'm not going to read through all these slides because I don't want to put you to sleep, but number one, there's not a defined purchasing process. So suppliers take advantage of that, and can throw a piece of paper in front of you with some prices on it. You say, yeah, it's good, and off to the races we go. Two, there's too many buyers in a dealership. We've talked about that just a minute ago. Too many people with purchasing authority. Number three, there's no quoting or benchmarking going on. That represents truth in the marketplace. When you go out for 4 quotes on credit card processing, you're going to see the highs and the lows, and you're going to know what truth is. But yet, suppliers are trying to sell you that a price is competitive. You don't know until you go out for quote. Number four, there's no preferred suppliers. I mean, if you don't leverage your business down to one supplier, you're not going to get their attention. You're not going to get their best pricing. Number five, too many dealers will negotiate 5 to 10 shop supply items, but the reality is you're buying 300 of them on a regular basis. So you're chasing narrow product pricing, which gives them the ability to jack up the price on the other 290 items that you buy. There's no supplier price locks. So when you achieve or arrive at a competitive price, We want to lock that price for 12, 24, 36 months. If you don't do that, the supplier will have the freedom to jack those prices up. Number seven, a price only focus. If you're only focused on price and you don't look at warranty, early payment discounts, credit card discounts, you're missing out on at least 4% net price reductions. Number eight, there's no three-way match of invoices. Suppliers that know you're not checking the shipments coming in will be encouraged to short ship you. And what we're talking about is matching up an invoice to a packing slip that came out of the box and then matching that up to a purchase order. That's a three-way match. Number nine, no supplier audits. Mistakes are not going to get caught unless you audit suppliers. And they know, if they do it intentionally, I don't think a lot of them do, but if they do that, um, they have the ability to sneak in price increases. And number 10, there's no method to manage contracts. You need a contract management tool, whether it's something as simple as Outlook and putting contract end dates in there on contracts that have expiration dates, or a contract tracking software. So those 10 strategies are flawed and we need to get those fixed. So we'll talk about that here in just a second. Number one, again, um, a weak sourcing process. Suppliers like that. They benefit because they hope that you're not quoting or negotiating. They hope that buyers have friendly relationships with the seller, going out for lunch, doing all those great things. But really, the way to fix that is to get a three quote minimum requirement in place for anything over $25,000. Utilize those quotes and benchmarks as the competitive pricing that you're negotiating to, and get your purchasing policies in place that, negate unfavorable relationships. Number two, too many buyers. You know, again, the suppliers like it when you have inexperienced people because there's little vetting. They can slide higher prices by. When there's too many buyers, there's too many suppliers. They may not be selling you as much, but they know the controls are pretty loose. They can focus on price, and they could, because you're not worried about taking other discounts off the total equation. So how do we fix that? Well, we create a purchasing policy that limits those with commitment authority. There's three ways to spend money in a dealership: a purchase order, a contract, or an invoice approval. And you got to get those three things under control. If you limit that to 5 or 6 people in the dealership, we're going to have far fewer suppliers entering accounts payable and things getting out of whack. We want to limit the amount of suppliers used by expense category. You shouldn't have to have 3 or 4 vendors for office supplies. One should do it. One should do it for credit bureau. One should do it for credit card. Maybe you need 5 for auto parts, but you don't need 27 towing companies. As a client once asked his management team in front of me, why do I need 27 towing companies? Well, you really don't. And you're losing leverage when you do that. Number 3, in terms of how to fix this, train fewer buyers to execute a better process, better compliance within your policies. Number 3, no quoting or benchmarking. Again, a supplier can tell you, look, Bob or Susan, this is really a competitive price, but you don't know that unless you go out for quote. So, use the old Reagan maxim, trust but verify. Trust your vendors, but verify whether the price is competitive by going out for quote. The buyer doesn't know truth in the marketplace unless you do a quote. So insist on a 3 quote policy, insist on relevant price benchmarks, and insist on an analysis and a recommendation before a supplier commitment is made. And if you do those things, we're going to get better pricing, reduce costs, better leverage, and improve profitability. Number 4, no preferred suppliers. Again, suppliers like getting a piece of the spend because they always hope that they can get more of it later once they build a relationship. Prices among locations may not be consistent, and we see this all the time. You're paying, 45 cents for a shirt at one location, 50 cents for that laundry shirt at another, and 55 at another. If we have a preferred supplier, there should be one price, across all of the locations. And again, poor vetting allows unqualified suppliers to participate. So what do we do about that? We'll limit personnel with commitment authority, get that approved supplier vetting process in place, and try to limit to two preferred suppliers to an expense category. So one that you're giving all your business to, and maybe one as a backup if you think you need it there. But limit those suppliers to a preferred supplier strategy. Number 5, narrow product pricing. The suppliers just, if they can earn your business on giving you a great price on brake clean, and I've seen this countless times, and you're okay with that. Now you've added to your supplier base. They're happy because they've got their foot in the door. When requirements aren't defined and expectations aren't defined with your supplier, anything goes, and they're free to push higher priced alternatives. What we want to do is ideally in shop supplies and office supplies, you're probably buying 300 items out there, and it's better to get pricing on those 300 instead of 10 or 20 or 30. So get pricing on a broad group of products, not a narrow group. That's going to protect your company and keep your costs down. Even in print, there can be 400 items in the print category alone. So we want to quote broadly, not narrowly. We want to protect prices broadly, not narrowly. Number 6, price locks. Suppliers love it if they say, well, here's $2.50 on this brake clean, and you think that's a great deal and you bring it in, but there's nothing now to preclude them from raising that price to $2.75 in 2 months and $3 a can in 4 months. They like to sneak in extra charges, fuel charge, wastewater charge, insurance charges. There's no limit to what they can do if you don't have price locks. So how do we fix that? Well, require locked pricing on all supplies, for all supplies and services for 12, 24, 36 months. Now, there's going to be some exceptions to this, but in most cases, not. You're going to be able to get price locks, and if the supplier violates those price locks, you're free to move on if you're not under a contract. There are only a few market-based exceptions to this, paper and oil-based products, but for most products, you can lock pricing. We had suppliers that locked wheel weight pricing for 6 and 7 years. So it can be done. And then make sure you communicate those lock prices to your employees and management. Again, discourage them from bringing on new suppliers because you've got a preferred supplier. Number 7, suppliers love it when you focus on price only. They don't give you discounts on early payment terms. They don't give you the ability to pay with a credit card. They assume the buyer is inexperienced, so they'll take advantage of it and they'll push for higher prices. So again, one of the ways that you can combat that is to establish a target price, if you've got some data behind you, and a set of business requirements to back up what you're trying to quote. Always request early payment discounts of 2%, meaning if you pay that bill within 10 days, you get a 2% discount. And always negotiate the right to pay a credit card, because today you could probably get another 2% discount. So just those two things alone, if we've got $100 invoice, we can take 4% off that with the early payment and the credit card, and you just brought $4 more to the bottom line. Always request a broad list of business requirements, because they become negotiating trade-offs. So, I want service 24/7, 7 days a week. Now, maybe that's not what you really need, but start there define your business requirements and then negotiate them away for more improved benefit to the organization. So try to get away from this price only focus and look at the larger transaction. No three-way match process. Supplier benefits from, um, if you've got a weak process, you're not doing a three-way match, the supplier absolutely benefits from that. What we're talking about here is if they think that they can slide in under shipments or over shipments, things like that, we want to avoid that entirely. Um, we don't want quantities larger than we ordered or shorter than we ordered. So how do you fix that? Get that three-way match in. So this is especially important with supplies. So you need a purchase order, an invoice, and a packing slip, from the shipment to be matched up. And then based on that, based on accuracy of all three documents, then you pay them. We want to memorialize that process in your purchasing policies. So set that as an expectation. Again, anything supply related is where the risks are. We were at a dealer in Savannah, Georgia a few years ago, and there were at least 5 shop supply vendors that we could not find any of the product on the shelf. And it turned out that all of them were fraudulent. And but unless you get a package slip off the shipment and can match it up for payment, those things can happen. Number 9, suppliers love it when you don't audit them. So they can make a mistake either legitimately or illegitimately. Price increases can be slipped by if there's no audit controls. Other accessorial charges can be added in. So, whether it's a shipping vendor, they can throw a raft of charges on those invoices, or a uniform vendor. Unless you're auditing and compare it back to the controlling document, whether it's a quote or a contract, you're going to miss that. So auditing is the fix. We want to implement a supplier compliance audit, not for every category. We're not going to audit necessarily is the price of the pencil right? But for high spend categories, DMS, uniforms, credit card, credit bureau, there we want to match that invoice price to the contract or the quote. We want to expand those audits. If we find errors when we do these, then we want to do those audits more often. And it's going to send a strong message back to your supplier that you're checking it, you're watching it, and they probably shouldn't do that again, or you might pick up your business and go somewhere else. And then communicate those results to the suppliers. Let them know you're watching. And I guarantee they've got their revenue at stake. They're going to get their um, tactics and practices in order if they want to keep your business. And then the 10th strategy that suppliers love is really knowing that you don't have a contract management process in place. Most of you know that there's auto renewals built into contracts. You should cross that out right away. They're hoping you don't. You need to. They benefit from having different pricing for different locations. And they can add new charges with little risk of pushback or challenge. So how do we fix that? Well, we gather all contracts within the organization. And if you're unsure of, whether you have them all, you can always do a letter in your payables run and try to flesh them out directly with the suppliers that way. Tell the supplier if there's a contract in place, I want a copy of it by, you know, February 15th, or we'll assume there's no contract. That will flesh it out. Gather all those contracts, get them into one physical spot. I recommend the CFO or the controller. Get all those contract due dates into a system, either Outlook or a contract management system with some sort of alerts. Try to peg it at 120 days out from the due date. So you have time to at least go out for quote and put a better solution in place. And if there's not, again, if there's not a contract management system, then use Outlook appointment setting and you can create alerts that way. So those are the 10 things, 10 strategies that you really need to get under control. And all of a sudden, you're not going to be, a pushover for suppliers in terms of them taking advantage of you. So we want to fix the issues with spend management best practices. There are things, strategies we want to get right, imperatives, if you will. We want to get the spend scope and policies. We want to get planning right. We want to get the category strategies right, quoting, benchmarking, audits, and management. We want to get those strategies right to be most effective. There is a best practice assessment that we'd be happy to provide to you. It's just kind of an internal document that can show you, of the 10 strategies we've kind of addressed here. It's kind of a self-diagnostic. You can fill that out. If you send it back to us, we can grade it for you, and it's really kind of a stoplight. Red, you have some risk. Orange, you probably need to be tweaked a little bit. Green, you're good to go. So we can provide that to you. We can grade it for you. We don't have to grade it for you. You can just keep it yourself. But it's a good diagnostic to see where you probably have risk and where you need to tighten things up. Another best practice is to centralize your purchasing system. This is just a wheel that says if you do that, it doesn't have to be this complex, but if you're going to do it right, start with your vision and mission, analysis, strategies, org chart, position descriptions, metrics, policies, training, execution, audit, and management. That's really what you need. Purchasing policies, again, there's 3 ways to spend money. You want to get that in place. Best practice number 3, get some objectives in place. And we use the SMART formula. I went to a Catholic college, so we use 2 A's in SMART, but you get the idea. You should write it in that format so that you've got something that's tangible and you can measure against. Number 4, you want to get a sourcing plan in place with all the expense categories and all your historical spend data so that you know which categories you're going after in 2025. 5, we want to get that contract management in place. 6, we want to get that 8-step sourcing process in place. Don't jump to just the renegotiation because you're going to short circuit the steps. You're going to have poor data and you may feel great about what you've negotiated, but chances are you're still going to be spending too much if it's not data driven. Number 7, get that preferred supplier program in place. Again, all of your categories are over here. Your supplier count is over here in yellow, and that can be kind of shocking to many companies. In this particular case, they had 1,389 suppliers, and our target was 198. So, we can reduce that supplier base by 70, 80%. Just imagine what the efficiencies and the improved controls will be back to your organization. Again, number 8, 3-way match, get that in place. Number 9, get those audits in place, supplier compliance audits. And then number 10, a monthly management review process. You're doing probably an expense review today, but are you really taking a look at all your expense categories? And ultimately, you're not going to sell your way to new profitability. I know a lot of dealers think they will just sell more vehicles, but you can move the needle on profitability pretty darn quickly with expense reduction. So I'd encourage you to think about that. So we want to stop the profit leaks and add to your bottom line. This just shows you that even if we don't take 25% on, if we only take 20%, if you've got spend of 2 million, 3, 5, and 10, you can see what the numbers look like. It's pretty appealing, and those are material dollars. Again, how many cars do you have to sell to net 400,000, 600,000, and so forth? So we want to make some changes. We want to go from paying 25% too much to reducing costs by that amount. We want to go from missing supplier discounts to new discounts, more cash. We want to go from no supplier audits to new supplier audits, new cash, from high supplier pricing to new competitive pricing, from too many suppliers to an optimized supplier base. All of that's going to yield new profitability, which is, I think, why you're on this webinar today. Again, cost reductions are going to add profits quicker than sales. This shows that a dealer at 2%, 3%, 4% net profit margins, 2 million in cost reductions up here at 4% means you'd have to sell $50 million in cars to net the same amount. So this is real, it's material, and it can drive healthy profits, but you're going to have to get serious about it. We can assist. We've been in the dealership space now 25 years. We started in the middle part of 2000 with a 20 group that we did down in Cabo. We are Minnesota-based, veteran-owned. Actually, that savings number is over 700 million now. We've got over 150 years of spend management experience. So if this is something you feel you can't do or don't have the time for, we'd be happy to help. We've got a number of strategies that we can deploy to help you, and we'd be honored to do that. We've got a number of programs. We've got a profit improvement program, kind of a full service white glove solution. We've got simply a spend analysis to help you on the planning. We can help you with a contract tracker. And here in a short period of time, we'll have a database program that'll help you just on pricing. If you have the time to do all the sourcing, we've got the benchmarks that can help you make better decisions. So there's a lot of ways that we can help you out. In fact, one of our longest clients, I think we're going on 17 years of uninterrupted service, as a Colorado-based dealer as well. The CFO runs, I think, 7 different businesses under his watch, and we are a very efficient way to manage that to manage the expense side of the business for him. So ultimately, we got a lot of options, but we're going to help you keep more of the money you make. So I know this is a recorded session. There's no questions, but if you have any questions for us, please reach out to Chris Austin, 612-386-3898. His email is there, caustin@strategicsource.com. If you want to scan the QR codes, you can download the presentation, scan this QR code. We can do some free price comparison reviews for you. Be happy to do that in a couple of categories. You send us your pricing. We'll help you with what that pricing should look like. And if you're not sure what the pricing is, shoot us the invoices. We'll interpret it. And then lastly, if you would like that best practice assessment, we'd be happy to provide that as well. So thank you for your time today. We sure appreciate you attending. And again, any questions, feel free to give us a call, contact us by email, hit our website. We'd be happy to help any way we can. Thank you to the Colorado Auto Dealers Association for allowing us to put this program on. Have a great day.